I'm a fan of original works. I think for me as a comic writer, I want to know the original characters. So I'm a fan of writers, and so not and as well as artists. Not saying that I'm not a fan of artists either, because you know it's the art that draws you in. Like when you look at this, it draws you in. So you go, it's a great freaking um, colorful, colorful, freaky thing. Is a guy just wearing the helmet? Is it a helmet, the chainsaw thing, or whatever? But and so a lot of times I'm focused on the character themselves. What does the character do? How does it work within the world they're created in? Because as a writer, I'm trying to work as on that level as well. Like, how do my characters, what's their driving force? What's their family like? What is about them that's going to make it interesting to you as a reader? But for me first, because I want to make sure this character is interesting. I'm gonna try to flesh it out as much as I can. And so this week I had like a problem with not so much a problem, but this past week, I've been ill and stuff, and so I've only been feeling better since last night, early this morning. That's why we haven't got a guest today, because I just didn't think I was going to have this show tonight. But there's been so much going on in comics that has broken my heart, right? And I'm talking about mainstream. And the point that I've just walked away now. This is the last bunch of comics that I'm purchasing from mainstream, right? Right. So, here I am, like I held up this before was because I want to show you that I do love this character. And so I bought these comics just for the cover. And the problem here is, if you see that in America, go, oh, that's a good price. That's what we pay in America. But dude, that's a New Zealand price for this comic. Right? It's been sitting on the website catalog or back catalog in the storeroom of the store owner for what? When did this come out? Man, I'm gonna have to find out. Let me just work it out, because I haven't even opened it, because I just bought these for the cover. Don't really care much about this, about the writer or anything. But but I was, I like the. Let me see. I think George Fawns is a good artist, but let me just find the age when this came out. 2021. So this comic has been sitting on the shelf or in the cupboard and on the online catalog for this store for 2 years. And that is a character from Watchmen. Now, Watchmen, of course, is supposedly the greatest modern comic, right? Graphic novel, whatever, 12 issues, right? And that's the character there, Roche's, right? Because of the Roche's mask, right? Oh, the Roche's prince, whatever they have it, but of course that's not his mask. So since 2021, this comic has been sitting on the back burner at this shop, right? As is this X-Men Gold. These are like X-Men in the back in the day with pinnacle IP. You could not see it on the shelf. You had to make sure that you had an order, and then you might see one, but you had to make sure that it was on your pull list or you missed out. Because I was a huge X-Men fan. Everything mutant, that was me. I was a Marvel or nothing, right? Even when Image came out, and in 1991 or something like that, can't remember, 94, and when the guys at the counter were going, hey, buy Shadowhawk, it's got this really cool cover. I was like, okay, sure. Didn't go back for number 2. The cover was fine. And they had all these gimmicking covers and like just didn't get me, right? But I was buying everything New Mutants, right? Or Mutants, I should say. And so, like Clandestine, or Destin, Clandestine, with the British side, Mutants, New Mutants, X Factor, X Force later on with with Deadpool and stuff. But the thing is that these comics, this is a variant cover, by the way, as well. There's a Mary Jane variant. So these covers, are premium covers. So at variant, you're looking at around about $15. So this guy has already lost $10. And I feel sorry for comic shop store owners now because of the substandard, you know, sub-quality writing, which means that you lost your money on this book that should be able to sell for $15 New Zealand. Is getting only moved at $4, and only because I like Russia's on the cover. Don't even care about the story. And so if it's sitting there for 2 years, that means that store owner, who is a customer, right, first, because he's got to buy it in, has lost out on $10 of profit for each of these books. And that's not, you know, because, right, so that's $30 New Zealand he's lost on these books. Not to mention the fact that bag and board is going to cost around about $1, right? Which is the bag and board and the bag. Usually it was, you know, give or take about 60 cents, but at retail it's about $1. And so as a former comic store owner, I understand what the fact of what happens when you have terrible, terrible comics on your shelf, which nobody wants, which you're told it's the new best thing by the supply, you know, by the magazines that the suppliers promoted in, right? Previews and stuff. This was back in like 2015, right? This is when it all went downhill, right? To be honest, this one I think it just really went downhill completely. But recently, I want to show this video because I thought it was very important. And I've been wanting, because I've been sick and I haven't been able to catch up on a lot of stuff I want to talk about. And I apologize for that, but you know, you can't do much when you're ill, right? You just got to go with it. So I want to play this a little bit here. And let me see if that's all set up. Yep, that's all set up at the bottom. Great. You guys don't want to see my face too much. So let's go.
I mean, this is nice. I mean, this artwork is amazing. They keep watering it down. I don't know if it's watered down or it's. They just kind of repeat the same stories in a different show in a different way. I get a lot of surprises from the indies. I mean, some of like DC, I read Detective, I read that forever. Green Arrow came back. Thank you, God. My favorite, I mean, since I was a little baby, you know. That's what started it all. Reading the Robin Hood books. And Green Arrow came up and said, oh, wow, just for me. You know, it's perfect. I don't know what else to tell you, kid.
Yeah. The Hood was a fantastic character. And then they just made him idiotic after that, and they ruined a great character. I mean, you know, the Hood comes out of nowhere. And believe it or not, that idiot Brian K. Vaughan, I believe, came up with the guy from Saga, the guy that can't get a book out on time, right? He used to be a brilliant writer and a worker, but, you know, now he's just a lazy chump. So they get the Hood going. He's a main part of the Marvel universe, main part of the villains. That storyline ends. He just kind of disappears, loses parts. Then he goes after the Infinity Gauntlet gems, gets a couple gems. He's just an idiotic clown, and then he disappears. And he shows up once in a while. So I'm hoping they do him well in this book.
Very enjoyable. Very, very good book.
Now they just make idiotic characters most of the time. They finally got somebody good, and then they stop using them. I don't know why. Change of the guard, maybe, or change. You know. Well, then again, there's probably different change of writers where people don't. The writers nowadays, they don't care about the characters of what the character is anymore. Most of these new writers don't have the love of comics like these older writers had, and all they care about is, how can I put myself in the book? No, we don't care what you would do if you were Iron Man. We don't care who you are. You're writing Tony Stark. You're not writing yourself in a book. Mm-hmm. If that's the case, write your own comic with you in it. No one will read it because nobody cares. People grew up, are growing up loving Peter Parker, loving Miles Morales, loving all these Captain America. We don't need you to put your input in it. Just 100%. Write Steve Rogers. 100%. Don't write Steve Rogers. What would Steve Rogers be if I was Steve Rogers? Yeah. That's not how it works. But that's again how most of these new people write nowadays. That's why most of the stuff is shit. Because we don't care how you what you would do, because we don't care about your life whatsoever. Yep. Just write a book, get paid for what you do, get paid for what you're supposed to be doing, and make it a good story. We don't care. We don't
100%.
need your opinion.
Yep. That's it. That's really it. That is it. We don't need your opinion about anything. You don't need my opinion about anything in my comics. You really don't, right? Because you go, what the hell's wrong with this dude? What you want is me writing Incredi-Girl about Incredi-Girl being Incredi-Girl and her life. You want me writing about Templeton, about his family, about his life, him in hell, him collecting souls, him dealing with what happened in his life, and his kids, right? When whatever, and maybe whatever happened with him to get into hell. You don't want me putting my opinions about things that are happening now in those stories, because what's happening now doesn't matter in 100 years, or in 10 years, in 5 years, because oh sweet dude, thanks. Yeah, oh good. Now, so you don't really want me imposing myself into my characters. Like if I was writing Wolverine, I'd be like, what is Wolverine doing in this situation? Not what is Aru going to do with the meat sleeve, meat coat of Wolverine over his shoulder, pretending to be Wolverine, will do in the situation, because I'll probably run away, right? Or I'll just go revenge mode. I'll be like, finally, I am Wolverine. I've got these claws and I can kill everybody and I can live forever and I'll heal. Nobody can do nothing, right? Berserk mode, right? But when I see Superman, I don't want Superman to be anybody but Clark Kent, a little guy who grew up, from a baby to adulthood, whatever, 18 until he left, on a farm. So his idea of community is on how he grew up around his family, the Kents, right? Ma and Pa Kent, Martha and I can't remember his dad. That sucks, but that's my head injuries, right? So, but there they are, and the people he grew around with, people who, common folk who influenced his life. Not he went to suburbs, which had the mentality of the suburbs and the city, and now he's behaving like a city person. That's why this great early on, when you see like Superman movie, when you see Lois behave the way she is, and you see Superman behave the way he is, and you can tell them country folk, right? Townsfolk, country folk, town folk, and you tell them, and it's so good when you see that. And I think, if you can tell a story where you don't see the author, I should say, you might, like voice in it, that's the best. So when you're writing if I'm a dude writing a female character, right? So I'm writing a character called Ruth, right? And she's a chief engineer, right, on board a space station. She's designing friggin' rockets that's going to take them to the space station, that they're going to build all this. And I'm researching online what the friggin', what's a fuselage, what's an exhaust, what's a friggin' rocket called that had this full of fuel that has to propel these, these ships that's going to carry 1,000 people into space out of our orbit, right? And all these things. And because I ought to give as much information to my artists as I can, with things that I'm thinking in my head of how it's going to be, which is kind of weird, right? Because right now, seeing that Gundam trailer, which kind of like I don't like, right? That's going to be on Netflix. For the first time, I realized that now that basically what's happening in that movie, not in that movie, but in the actual original Gundam thing, is kind of the setting that I've actually created for my own, for this story, for the next chapter, number 2 and number 3 of Robot Nation, because this story about Ruth became more than a friggin', supposed to be a 22-page Now it's like a 40-page. So I did like put over 2 issues. But we're still going to have a little short story, complete story there, just to, keep people satisfied. But I am talking, I'm now a 40-year-old mum who's very smart and is trying to outwit these people who are trying to blackmail her into doing something. And she's got no one to rely on but her dog, her robot dog. That's it. Her and a robot dog, right, is all she's got. And so I've got to think about how's the friggin' dog going to behave, right, in the situation. What will the robot do? And it's like I've been watching a lot of friggin' pet videos, right, with how dogs react, and you kind of think, well, it's all this research you got to do, because otherwise, it's just pure fantasy that doesn't really have any hold on reality. Because I like to be a futurist when I'm writing stories, like especially when it comes to like future storytelling, where you're talking about robots and stuff and AI or space travel and stuff. You want to be able to at least have some more sort of truth to them, because otherwise it'll feel hollow. And when it's like, I just made that up, but there are those things. But then also there are the things like, well, this could speculative fiction, right, which is what I'm writing, futuristic speculative fiction, where you speculate what could happen, but how would it happen, right? How would you create a friggin' a city in space, right, and without anybody seeing it, right? Because your enemies will be keen on like making sure you don't build it, or if you're trying to escape Earth and your enemies see that you're trying to escape Earth, they're going to blow you out. And so this little short 22 story became, which was supposed to be like 12 pages and 12 pages, because I was going to talk about Ruth, and then I was going to talk about the family, because you could be like, 2-part story together in one book. Now it's like a 40-page story in 2 books. So, but the idea is, when you're writing, you put yourself in the background and you let the story and the characters drive it. So I'm letting Ruth drive it. I'm putting out little plots and stuff, and I'm going to, I do what I got to do as a writer, but the story itself is to be told in her voice, so that she sounds like a 40-year-old mom, concerned for her kids, concerned for her husband, concerned for her family, concerned for this amazing stuff she's built. And because she doesn't have anyone right now but her and her dog, and robot dog, as I mentioned. And so I got to really make sure whatever's going on makes sense to me first, because if it doesn't make sense to me, how's it going to make sense to anybody reading it? But not only that, then how's it going to make sense to the artist who's got to bring it all together and make it live, right? And the great thing is, when you have a good artist like Francisco, he really understands where I'm heading with it, without even like coming back and going, what do you think of this? What do you think of this? Because I don't really give too much details. I come from film making, right? Film writing. So I just know this happens, this happens, this happens, and keep things in order and let him go for it, right? How do they dress? Sometimes I'll say this and that's it. I have a coat on this one. Oh, they're hiding under a blanket. And you see this amazing room, and there they are hiding under the blanket. That's it. But like this entire room is built up that he's designed, right? All the shelves, all the windows, stuff over the floor, there's books over there and all this. And, it's just great to see. But that's the marriage of a writer and a good artist. And I am very thankful to have a good artist. And he's not the only one.